What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew: Shad, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. And for everyone who's tuning in, we thank you for supporting Behind the Bench and subscribing to the channel and helping to make this show the best that it can be. Now, this is something I want to talk about. Yes, it's NBA related. Yes, it's in relation to the Los Angeles Lakers. And this is something that needs to be cleared. It needs to be differentiated. It needs to be addressed. And it's this notion that, look, what's crazy about this is all too predictable. Because when you go all in, when you throw your chips in the middle of the table, you're going to witness more misses than hits, more strikeouts than home runs, more interceptions than touchdowns. You get where I'm headed at? So when the plan starts to crumble, where you may get 1 year of the aforementioned goal to win, but in between all of that, outside all of that, on the front end and the back end, you're going to witness a lot of frustration. You're going to lose, while you see other people out there who stuck with the plan, stayed the course, and they achieved the ultimate goal of winning a championship in a way where it doesn't compromise anything. It doesn't compromise the present. It does not distort the past. It doesn't take away from the future. So what I'm getting at is, here we are, year 6 of this win now scenario that started July 1st, 2018. And now we have all these questions, all these innuendos. You know, the blame game has continued to manifest itself, generating one scapegoat after the next. Players getting traded, players getting waived, coaches getting fired on the average of 2 years. So you know what happens? You hear voices out there, they begin to say, voices that thought this was the way to go, and they were going to experience one championship after the next. And what they didn't understand is the manner of which all this was brought forth. All they were going to get is 1 year. All this maneuvering around, overhauling rosters, changing coaching philosophies. Oh, God. All this player movement, trades. All they got out of this was 1 year. And that was 4 years ago. So what we see happening now is the past, the history of this story franchise, the Los Angeles Lakers, is being tagged and being associated with the disappointment over the past 4 years. So I wanted to chime in, and this needs to be addressed, and this needs to be put to rest once and for all. Now all of a sudden, the Lakers, they cannot maintain any consistency in terms of coaching. So what happens is, since we've seen 3 coaches canned over the past 5 seasons, starting with Luke Walton after the 2018-2019 season, and then Frank Vogel, who lasted 3 years, who was fired after the 21-22 season. I mean, not 1 second after the last game of that regular season, they didn't waste no time. There was no time wasted in throwing Vogel under the bus. And then Darvin Ham lasted 2 seasons. And it was all too predictable. So now, people who really didn't follow the Lakers or watch Laker basketball, cared about Laker basketball until July 1st, 2018. So they're going to try to convince Laker fans who have supported this team for decades upon decades upon decades upon decades that what we thought was never was and never will be. Meaning that now talking heads are suggesting that the Lakers fire their head coaches on a whim. Even so much so, now they're saying Kobe Bryant was a coach eliminator, the terminator of coaches. But when you peel back the layers and really look at the resume and open the books, do research on it, it'll show Kobe Bryant played 20 years in the NBA. He entered the league in 1996 and retired in 2016. 11 of those seasons, he had the same coach, Phil Jackson. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. That's 5 seasons right there. 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. That's 11 seasons. And both times, the same coach was Phil Jackson. He stepped down as head coach in 2004. He took a year hiatus to recuperate, to rejuvenate himself, because he had been coaching. Now, people forget too, he coached the Bulls from 1989 until 1998. And he took a year hiatus to rejuvenate himself. Right? So this was something that he had not, it wasn't like this was something that he had not done before. He didn't get fired. Oh my God, man. Then let's go back to the Showtime years. Pat Riley coached the team. He was hired as head coach about midway throughout the 1981-1982 season. He coached Showtime to 4 championships. 1982, 1985, 1987, 1988. He coached the Lakers for 9 seasons before stepping down in 1990. And that's after they garnered the league's best record that season, winning 63 games, 63-19, and the Lakers got upset in the conference semifinals to the Phoenix Suns. He coached that team for 9 years. He took a year off. He was mainly like an analyst for NBC. Then he took on the job as the new head coach for the New York Knicks, and he coached them for 4 years, 4 or 5 seasons, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. So we just say 5 seasons, and then he coached the Miami Heat, and then he became the team president. As they say, the rest is history. He remains team president to this day for Miami, right? Dale Harris was the head coach for the Lakers from 1994 up until the beginning, up until the midway part of the 98-99 season. He coached the team for 5 years. That's a standard tenure for an NBA coach. Mike Malone, outside of Greg Popovich, who was supposed to have retired from coaching until San Antonio won the number one pick this offseason to draft Victor Wembanyama. Then he found a new lease on life, as they say. But outside of him, you got Mike Malone, Eric Spoelstra, and Mike Malone. Outside of Popovich, those are the two longest tenured coaches in the NBA. Mike Malone has been the head coach of the Denver Nuggets since Nikola Jokic was drafted back in, I believe, 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So, with the information that I just shared, where's this notion that the Lakers had a history of firing their coaches? See, they want to put all this, the blame what's been happening over the past 5 years. They want to put everything on the front office. That's the easy go-to move. That's the crutch. All the front office ownership don't know what they're doing. But guess what? Jerry West was the head coach of the Lakers from like 1976 up until 1979. So he coached Kareem after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was traded to the Lakers around the 75-76 season. Jerry West was Kareem's head coach for like 3 years. He didn't get fired when he stopped coaching the team. He got promoted to general manager shortly after the late, great Dr. Jerry Buss bought the team and became his new owner. So check his name off the list of supposed coaches in Laker history that was fired. Dale Harris was the coach for 5 years. And the reason he was let go, mainly because he did not want to play young players such as Kobe Bryant. But in of itself, 5 years is a standard tenure for an NBA coach. Okay. So when Phil Jackson stepped down the first time, he stepped down in both times, in 2004 and 2011. When the Lakers were trying to three-peat and fell short, losing to Dallas in the playoffs in 2011. But when he stepped down in 2004, the Lakers hired Rudy Tomjanovich. And he stepped down within 1 year of his deal, his contract to coach the team, because he was dealing with some health issues. And me personally, he's a Houston Rocket. Every time I thought of Rudy Tomjanovich, I think about one of the most famous expressions he ever gave, that a figure of the NBA ever gave. He said, "Never underestimate the heart of a champion," and that's what he uttered when he coached the Houston Rockets to back-to-back championships in 1995. And I always thought of him as a Houston Rocket. So I never thought he was going to remain the coach or be the coach for a long period of time. See, some things really aren't meant to be. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's nothing against, the Lakers had to hire somebody after Phil Jackson stepped down. I understand that. But I just always thought that Tomjanovich was a real short-term situation. And he was no longer the coach after 1 year. They brought Phil Jackson back, and he coached the Lakers for the next, 6 seasons. Okay. Then they hired Mike Brown as the new coach. This was only after Phil Jackson stepped down. And the reason why they let Mike Brown go is because of the offense that he wanted to implement, that Princeton offense. They were spearheaded by Pete Newell, long-standing figure of Princeton University. And Mike Brown wanted to instill the offense for the Lakers, but that's not conducive to successful strategy when it comes to professional basketball. Okay. So, then after that, they brought in Mike D'Antoni. Okay, that was a surprise. Most people thought that they was going to bring Phil Jackson back again, but they, D'Antoni number was called, and it was mainly his style of coaching, the 7 seconds or less offense. Basically, it was more of an open court style of offense rather than a half court, triple post offense. And the Lakers didn't have that type of team to run that type of offense. So Mike D'Antoni did not last long, right? But what I'm trying to say is, what's going on now has nothing to do with what went on then. Even during the down years, after particularly after Kobe Bryant injured his Achilles, right? Now check this out. We brought in Byron Scott to be the head coach during Kobe Bryant's last remaining years on the team and in the league. And that was more of a symbolic gesture because Byron Scott was one of Kobe's mentors when Kobe started off, with the Lakers as a rookie. So that bond that they had, it was almost like, they wanted to bring someone who had a close connection with Kobe Bryant's career when he started out. So we want Kobe to go out the right way. You know what I'm saying? While the franchise was in the process of preparing to start all over again for the future. Now, we had interim coaches. A lot of teams, when they had coaches let go or whatnot, or whatever the situation may be, they'll bring on the interim coach, and that coach, may finish the season out, or they'll coach, a number of games before, another coach is hired. Okay, but that still does not mirror what's going on right now. This is something totally different. And here's another difference. When Phil Jackson stepped down in 2011, and then we brought on Mike Brown, and then, he was let go after like a year. Okay, we brought on D'Antoni. Well, the Lakers had just completed a championship run from 2008 to 2011, where you go to 3 straight finals, you go back to back, right? That's a real run. So when we fell short in 2011 of three-peating, the team didn't just fall off like a meteor, like a cliff. It was more like a gradual decline, especially when that Chris Paul trade was blocked. See, when outside of fans of other teams who are now watching the Lakers because of certain guys on the team, when they sit there and say, well, the Lakers ain't been no good since they won a title in 2010, well, my answer is, well, first of all, if that trade for Chris Paul would have been blocked, that could have avoided a situation that forced Kobe Bryant to play exorbitant minutes, which ultimately led to him injuring his Achilles. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Another thing is, some of your all-time story franchises went years, sometimes decades in between championships. Perfect example, none other than the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees have won more championships than any professional sports team in North America. Or let's just say any team in the history of professional team sports. 27 world championships. But guess what? After they repeated as World Series champions in 1978, during the heyday of Reggie Jackson, the great Reggie Jackson, right? Mr. October, right? They went 18 seasons before they won their next championship in 1996 during the Derek Jeter era with Bernie Williams and Mariano Rivera and Paul O'Neill. You know what I'm saying? When they really did have a freaking squad back then, man. Goodness gracious. But I'm just saying, they went 18 years. But that owner, the late George Steinbrenner, better known as the boss, he never allowed anybody, no matter how talented they were, whether someone they brought up from the farm system or a free agent or someone who they traded for, they never, and they had some great players during those 18 years. Dave Winfield, Don Mattingly. They had some players on that team over the year, but they took it was 18 years between championships. But he never let nobody dictate to him how to run his team. The Boston Celtics. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Dodgers. They won the World Series in 1988 when Earl Hershiser, he was about as dominant a pitcher in the postseason as we ever seen. I think he went like 57 consecutive innings without giving up a run. That's how dominant he was. They didn't win another World Series until 2020. That's 32 years. But nobody ever dictated and controlled their franchise. The Boston Celtics. You would have thought at the peak of their powers, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Danny Ainge, Dennis Johnson, right? They had one of the greatest championship seasons of all time in the NBA, and won the title and culminated in the championship in 1986. After that, they didn't win another title until 2008, 22 years later. And they're looking to win their first championship since 2008, which is another 16 years. But no one's ever brought to who they brought to the team or drafted or whatever the situation is. You never got a sense that their franchise is being taken over and controlled by one individual. Right? Heck, the New York Yankees, during the Derek Jeter era, they won 4 world championships, like 1996 until 2000. And then they lost one of the greatest World Series of all time, 2001 World Series, to the Arizona Diamondbacks with ace pitcher Randy Johnson. And then it took them 9 years to win their next world championship in 2009 with Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod. They haven't won a World Series since 2009. But they're still the Yankees. See, that's what I'm saying. You can go a long time in between winning, but you still who you are because your history gonna suggest that ultimately you have a winning tradition. The Lakers was the first team to repeat as champions in 19 years when they went back-to-back in 1988. They didn't win another championship until 12 years later in 2000. Until 12 years later in 2000. But you never had this. They were still the Lakers, though. This is what I'm saying. So when people say it's championship or bust, they're really exaggerating the situation. When they say championship or bust, they're not referring to the true history of the franchise. They're referring to the situation as of now over the past 6 years. See, it's a difference. And it's important to set the record straight and separate the real history of this franchise that's been misrepresented over the past 6 years to rationalize what's been going on as of late versus what's actually happening in real time. So we had one coach who led the team for 9 years. Then we had another coach who led the team for 11 years. And then we had another coach who led the team for 5 years. So you add 9 plus 5, that's 14. And then 11, that's 25. So from 1980 up until 2010, that's a 30-year span. 3 head coaches led the team over 25 years. You see what happened when you break this stuff down? You clearly see how the history of this franchise has been turned upside down, distorted, misrepresented. And totally everything's been thrown off whack because of what's going on right now. So it gets me to this right here. What's going on since 2018 has nothing. I put it this way. What took place in the 2010s, as every sports franchise has a down period where they may have some bad seasons, like San Antonio's been going through last couple years, like the New England Patriots going through right now after being dominant for 20 years, every sports franchise is going to go through it. That has nothing to do with what's been going on these past 6 years. Nothing. Because two of these coaches right here in this picture, Luke Walton, he was signed to coach the team for 5 years. He was doing a great job leading the most talented young core in the league. They improved the first 2 years under Luke Walton. The team improved 10 games each season. And then the total direction of the team was turned upside down, inside out. And he didn't have a chance where you knew he was going to be kicked out the door. And by year 3, he was let go. They said it came to a mutual agreement. In other words, he was fired. Not because of the organization of itself. We know why. So you bring on Frank Vogel, who supposedly led them to what the ultimate goal was, but it was at the cost of their real future. And when the roster started breaking down, he had to take the hit because of the flaw in the manner in which that particular player seeks championships. But everybody else got to take the blame. Then you bring in Darvin Ham. Right? And coach this team for 2 years. And was scapegoated and let go. See, them other coaches in the past, most of them stepped down. The Jerry West was promoted. Phil Jackson stepped down. Pat Riley stepped down. Rudy Tomjanovich stepped down. Yes, the coach was okay. Every team, we done seen every team, just about every team, and fired a head coach before. That ain't no big deal. But like I just said, over a 30-year period, 3 head coaches led the team for 25 years. So when you average it out between 3 coaches, that's 8 years on average. So what happened in the past should totally be separated from what's going on right now. But I guarantee once this all over with, once the Lakers finally get control back, we won't be seeing this carousel no more the way we're seeing. This is a carousel that's been going on over the past 5 years, to where on average, the coaches, I'm talking about head coaches. I'm not talking about interim coaches. I'm talking about head coaches are getting the can. And now the organizations find itself trying to reclaim its identity. That's where we at right now. So the previous 30 years and the 2010s have nothing to do with what's going on right now. So I just want to drop that nugget. Until next time, this is JB for BTB, Behind the Bench.